and, unsuccessfully, trying to convince the island's women to stop going around topless. He married 3 more times.
Bro, there's a few series that I forgot. I was going to do suggestions, but then I realized that I am quite behind on some series. It happens, and this is one of them. Ibn Battuta
1340.
The Escape.
For 6 years.
The last time I reacted to this, it was crazy. It was wild. So I was invested in this to see how he got out.
Has served as a Qadi for the Sultan of Delhi, but now he's under house arrest, awaiting execution. His friendship with a Sufi mystic had put him on the wrong side of the court. Ibn Battuta's friend had offended the Sultan by refusing a royal summons and calling the ruler a tyrant. In response, the Sultan tortured the mystic to death and arrested all of his associates. For 9 days, Ibn Battuta prays and recites the Quran from memory. Then, the Sultan beckons. Ibn Battuta goes expecting to die. But then the Sultan behaves like they're old friends, and everything's normal, as if he hasn't spent days preparing for death. It's at this point that
is insane.
Ibn Battuta realizes one thing. He's got to escape Delhi.
You gotta get out. You got to get out, bro.
Right as Ibn Battuta had arrived in Delhi, India entered a 7-year drought, which in turn caused a famine, which in turn triggered uprisings. Lots of uprisings.
Funny how I heard somewhere that I heard someone say that all famines are man-made. Now, how true that is, I don't know. Really and truly, I would debate that because there's like natural events that can cause famines and whatnot. Now, I don't know why India here went into a famine, but I know a lot of Indians like to talk about the Bengal famine. They try to bash the British Empire and the whole Bengal famine thing, and it's like, okay, you're gonna do that. Okay, then talk about all the other famines that happened throughout Indian history, because there were plenty. Like, I don't know all of them, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, just pointing out that there was plenty of famines that happened throughout Indian history where freaking my lights. Anyways, but yeah. And the whole Bengal famine thing, I don't really blame Britain for that. That could be a whole different video, quite frankly speaking. But I'm just
Sultan
saying.
Muhammad Tughlaq would face 22 rebellions during his last 15 years in power. Hindus revolted against taxes. Indian Muslims rose against the foreign advisors. Governors declared independence or hatched assassination plots. And Muhammad Tughlaq's paranoia went into overdrive. Ibn Battuta tried to tough it out, but after his brief imprisonment, he decided he had enough. And while the contract he'd signed meant he couldn't leave India, there was a loophole. He could go into religious retreat. So Ibn Battuta, court official and rich man, took the only escape hatch he could. He gave up all of his possessions, declared himself an ascetic, and lived in a cave. It was something he'd actually felt called to for years. Ever since he first began to encounter Islamic hermits, he'd wondered if that would be his path. Now, he learned to meditate, to live with nothing, fasting for 40 days at a time. But 5 months later, a summons came from the Sultan. He wanted Ibn Battuta back at court. And Ibn Battuta accepted. Partially because the Sultan killed anyone who refused, and partially because the offer came with a gift of gold, robes, horses, and enslaved people that restored all Ibn Battuta had given up, plus some. However, Ibn Battuta...
And again, right, I get these comments, dude. These comments on my videos, like, they always try to bring up slave... Wait, no, hold on a second.
Slavery, bruh. Slavery, but your ancestors, bruh. What your ancestors? Look what the white people did to your ancestors, bro.
Everyone knows that slavery happened everywhere. I'm gonna be quite frank with you. I'm gonna be so frank with you. Aside from slavery, there was nothing bad. There was literally nothing bad on my country when it was a colony. Like, there was nothing bad. Like, slavery happened everywhere, bro. Like nothing distinct really and truly happened that would make us become like Anglophobes. Like, that, no. Like, no. Literally nothing. So if slavery is your whole argument, then that's a very weak argument, because every single country is bad for that. Then, like, every single country is bad. Even America, right? Was arguing with someone in my comment sections the other day, and I looked at him. I was like, so you're saying that I'm kissing up my white colonizers. What about African Americans then? Because African Americans, slavery was way worse in the United States. But every single day, I see proud African Americans that are proud to be American. So are they kissing up their white colonizers? Because America is a settler colonial state. It is a very big one, actually. Or what about the Native Americans that were actually conquered, like actually conquered, ethnically cleansed, and what's the word? Dispelled? No, disposed, expelled from their one of those words, from their actual homelands, right? I know plenty of natives that are proud to be American. Like, are they kissing up their colonizers? Like, again, the cherry picking. I will bring this up over and over and over until I see people stop this. The cherry picking, the double standards is absolutely ridiculous. Is absolutely ridiculous. And even then, if I go back to my American example, look at segregation in America. That was bad. That was really bad. Jim Crow laws. The way how African Americans were treated up until the 70s, the 1970s. Very recently, African Americans were treated horribly. But yet, I know plenty of African Americans who are proud to be American. So, the double standards is absolutely ridiculous. I just want to point that out, because a lot of people seem to don't understand that, right? Like, I get it. The Caribbean is small islands. If you don't know the Caribbean history, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Even me and my brother, we talk about this all the time, and we're like, well, yeah, people aren't going to know anything about the Caribbean. It's small, and that's understandable. But when you have a closed mind and you try to act like you know everything, that's when I start to be like, yeah, no, absolutely not. Especially when clear historical facts are given to you, right? Okay, history is about learning new things to change your perspective. The problem with a lot of y'all, both Arab, both Muslim, both Turkish, Christian, white, black, all of y'all, the problem with all of y'all that I notice, and many of y'all, is that you people cherry pick history too much. Even when the clear facts are given to you, most of y'all don't want to change your perspectives. And if you are like that, most of y'all are like that. If you are like that, don't call yourself a history buff. Don't even say that you enjoy history, because you're not. Because that's an intellectual insult. Fact, not an opinion. If you cannot change your perspective, change your opinion, change your takes when you receive new clear facts, you don't deserve to be learning about any of this. Quite frankly speaking, you deserve to just stay ignorant.
Battuta, rich again, went to court with a plan. He would get permission to make a pilgrimage to Mecca and then just never come back. Huh? But the Sultan had his own idea. He needed an ambassador to visit the Yuan emperor and deliver an enormous train of gifts. Would Ibn Battuta, famous traveler, want to go to China in style? He did not have to ask twice. But travel was dangerous in the unstable empire, and on the way to the coast, rebels ambushed the train. In the conflict, Ibn Battuta was separated from the diplomatic train, carrying all he owned, and was chased into the country. About to be captured, he was forced to lose his pursuers by ditching his horse and hiding while they followed his previous steed. A few days before, he'd been one of the richest men in Delhi. Now, he was alone in enemy country with only his sword, boots, jewelry, clothes, and will to live. Then he promptly ran into rebels who captured him, took said sword and jewels, and handed him over for execution. But Ibn Battuta still had his clothes, boots, and will to live. So, he negotiated his release by giving his would-be executioners his fine tunic. Free again, he wandered the countryside, evading rebels and living by his wits for a week, with nothing now but his shirt, pants, boots, and still a will to live.
Meet Asana.
Starving, he stumbled into a town to beg for food and promptly got robbed for his shirt. But he wouldn't quit. He still had his pants and his boots, and you know what? Wait, scratch that. At this point, he'd actually lost one boot trying to draw water out of a well. So, yeah. It was at this one booted point when he lost his will to live. But then, a miracle. Amidst this land of Hindu rebels, a Muslim man found him, fed him, and took him upon his back to bring him to safety. And all the while, Ibn Battuta recited the Quran until, exhausted, he passed out. When he awoke, he was in a friendly town and found out that the rest of his diplomatic mission was just 6 miles away, and very surprised to find him alive. And they still had all of his baggage and servants. He was rich again. Rejoining the group, they traveled to Calicut, a major port city where they could meet
That luck is wild.
up with Chinese junks. These ships, enormous compared to the dhows Ibn Battuta traveled on, were Chinese-built, but crewed by Muslims in the India-China trade. He marveled at their 5 decks, and most of all, their large private cabins with their own lavatories. However, for this voyage, Chinese merchants and the other court diplomats had reserved all of those rooms, leaving Ibn Battuta with a smaller, toiletless cabin. That was no big deal, though. Ibn Battuta had learned humility after all. He'd lived in a cave, and just days before, he only had one shoe. He wouldn't quibble over a slightly smaller cabin. Wait, what's that? Oh, right, yeah. He threw a fit. How dare they dishonor the Sultan's ambassador by giving him worse accommodations than common merchants and lesser diplomats? Ridiculous! After essentially wanting to speak to their manager, the ship's agent, a Syrian, managed to smooth things over by securing a comparable stateroom on the fleet's second, slightly smaller ship. This mollified the prickly ambassador, and Ibn Battuta loaded all of his possessions and entourage into the second ship. The night before the voyage, he stayed on shore to pray, and suddenly a storm blew up. One bad enough that the 2 vessels had to put to sea, leaving him ashore, again with nothing but the clothes on his back. As he watched from the shore, the vessel he was supposed to be on wrecked, killing everyone aboard. And the second ship, carrying
God was watching over him.
all that he owned, blew so far out to sea that they decided to continue to China without him. He was stranded and poor again. And now he'd lost all of the Sultan's splendid gifts for the emperor. So he really didn't want to go back to Delhi and explain his failure to the Sultan's execution elephants. At first, he tried to get a job with another Indian Sultan, even fighting in an amphibious assault to prove himself worthy of employment. But that didn't work out, and Ibn Battuta instead snuck off with a nebulous plan.
What the hell? Bro. What? You're fighting a whole battle just to prove yourself? Bro, imagine if jobs were like that today. You know when you're applying for a job and it's like you have that test to see if you're good for employment? Bro, imagine if jobs were like that today, bro.
To just go to China. Fulfill as much of his old mission as possible. In doing so, he of course would take the most out-of-the-way route possible through the Maldives Islands. But the local Muslim authorities there needed a chief judge, and they were plying him with gifts, so, old habits die hard. He agreed to stay and take the job, under a few conditions. First, he got a ton of treasure, making him rich again. Second, he married into the royal family. And third, he didn't want to walk anywhere. Yeah, He had to be carried on a litter like the king. They agreed, and he spent 9 months meting out punishments under religious law, doling out floggings for failing to attend mosque, sentencing thieves to have their hands cut off, and, unsuccessfly, trying to convince the island's women to stop going around topless. He married 3 more times.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. It's weird because the whole like topless thing, that was kind of a modern thing. Like I know like back that whole like breast thing, it wasn't really like frowned upon, I guess, like showing your breasts. That's why you like see all those paintings with like, you know, breasts, right? It was more like legs. Funny enough, it was like legs that were, I guess, inappropriate to show. Yeah, weirdly enough, I like flip-flop. Nobody really cares if you show legs today. But people would care if a chick freaking took off her top and her breasts would be showing. That's really... I want to know why that changed.
Finding that the island's cowrie shell dowries were cheap and divorce simple. Indeed, it was common at this time for merchants to get temporarily married during these short stays. But his high living gained him enemies, and he fled the Maldives with his new fortune, only to tarry on a neighboring island just long enough to get married and divorced twice more. Then at last, he took his replenished treasury and toured Sri Lanka before hiring yet another ship to take him to China. A ship which was attacked by pirates, who once again took everything he owned. You know, I don't think the universe liked Ibn Battuta being rich. But finally, his luck changed. He then got passage to the court of the Muslim Sultan.
Well, blessed are those who are in a position with a lot of money, because you will be judged by that. You will be judged by that when God comes on Judgment Day.
And who ruled the northern tip of Sumatra. And that little side trip you can hear about over in our Majapahit series, because this guy gets around. When he departed, he at last left behind the Islamic world, the last kingdom he would visit, ruled by a Muslim. He stopped in the kingdom of Champa, current-day Vietnam, and visited a third great kingdom, that of the warrior queen, Urdura, that may have been in either the Philippines or Java. Urdura, tall, adorned with gold and jewels, her hair flowing long, gave Ibn Battuta gifts and showed him the powerful fleet she used to battle Chinese forces. Her greatest ambition, she told him, was to lead an expedition to India, so she pumped him for information about his time there. Waving goodbye, she put him on a ship to China, and at long last, he arrived at his objective, the land of the Mongol Yuan emperors, where even beggars wore silk. A place so alien, he could
even beggars wore silk.
Barely understand it. And haunting his steps came a new horror, the Black Plague.
Oh, yeah. Oh, forgot about that. Damn. Bro, this series is good as hell, bro. Like, this series is mad good, bro. I think this is probably like my favorite extra credit series. I was supposed to react to Catherine the Great. I will probably continue that. But if you have any suggestions to me, for me, by me, you like this cross that I have here, but go comment it down below. If you like my reactions, go check out my other Islam reactions. Like and subscribe so that my stuff stays on the algorithm, man. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.